Speaking of which, NFL.com did a piece, bunch of veterans, and listed, these are guys that you're not hearing a lot about, but could get cut and save their team a bunch of money. You know who they listed on that list was Marshon Lattimore.
I was really surprised to see that name.
So I think if you're just putting together a list and if you've got some formula where you just look up veterans who make a lot of money that are coming off of bad seasons, X-axis is how much money you make, Y-axis is how bad of a season that you had, and then you want people in the bottom right quadrant, so to speak, right? Marshon Lattimore is going to be in that quadrant because he is due against the cap this season $18 million. And he was downright dreadful at times in the playoff run for Washington. We know they're probably not going to cut him because Adam Peters has come out and said as much, number one, because they just traded picks for him, and it would look really, really bad if he played as poorly as he did this past year. And then they cut him before the final 2 years of the contract that he has left. But they could get out of the deal with zero dead cap. This is your one chance to bail. You've got an opportunity. When you get in the car and start driving, you cannot get out again. It's like the roller coaster about to take off.
That's right.
You sat down, we're buckling up, and you're looking at your kid who's a little nervous, and you're going, hey, buddy, if you don't want to ride this thing, you got to make that decision right now. Because as soon as this thing leaves...
Yeah, when they lower those the bars.
We cannot come back. And so Washington has right now this moment to decide, am I paying Marshon Lattimore $18 million or not? But this guy, and I don't know, I've never heard of him, but it's a writer, does some fantasy stuff at NFL.com, is just going through a bunch of the dudes that make a lot of money that didn't play well last year. And he's going, are we sure teams shouldn't cut this player? And he listed Marshon Lattimore, who I think most of us have decided is coming back. And most of us think probably should come back based on what they gave up in the trade. But it is just another way to look at it. You know, it's like walking along and now someone hands you binoculars and you're like, oh, I kind of see what you're talking about. $18 million is not nothing for a guy that played poorly last season.
Yeah, and from the piece, and notably, he was talking about Lattimore. He was awful in the postseason, earning a horrific 29.6 coverage grade from PFF and allowing 10 catches for 172 yards and a 136.6 passer rating on 14 targets.
That doesn't even sound like all of the stuff that he allowed.
With the release, his entire $18 million cap hit would become savings in 2025. So
what a huge amount of cap space.
When you read that, you go, actually, that makes a little sense. Now, I don't think it's on the table. I think Adam Peters believes in the
things, right?
Right.
Does it make sense, and will they do it?
Precisely. And that's where I was going, is I don't think that's happening. I think he's here. I think they're saying we believe he's going to play better next year, and we didn't trade for him just for the stretch run. Although it would have been nice, but we think we got something here, and $18 million is going to be a bargain. If we sign someone like this in free agency, it would cost 25, 26 or so. So I don't think it's happening. Put that aside for a second. This is kind of reasonable. This makes sense to me. And I sort of didn't think about it this way, but now I'm kind of on I'm not agitating for it. I'm not sitting here telling you that I agree with this, but as someone who is not in the confident Marshon Lattimore camp, I don't know. I don't know if this is not something that old Randy Douye would have to consider.
I am ambivalent toward Lattimore a little bit because I just have so many conflicting feelings now on this, right? The first of which is I actually thought when they acquired him that he was still an outstanding DB. And I have to assume that that is the case. I think he was hurt. And then when he came back a little too soon, and he wasn't 100%. And what I call chasing his tail, meaning, you know, he was kind of trying to get back up to speed at 100%, and it didn't work. And I think he is a lot better than he played, and he will be better this year. So I'm going to separate that. The other thing is, though, there is no guarantee of that. He had a bunch of hamstring problems in New Orleans. Then he came here and wasn't that much healthier and wasn't a quick healer. He's not getting younger. Danny, $18 million against the cap. You get every single penny of it. It doesn't matter who we're talking about. Yeah. If you're not a star and you're not kind of indebted to that player, I think it's got to be a consideration. Now, they don't really need $18 million. They already have the third most cap space. They're already not going to spend all the cap space they have. I'd love to sit here and tell you they're going to go out and get a corner and an edge and a tackle and a wide receiver and a running back, and they're going to have $2 million left in cap space. They're going to spend right up to the limit. Neither of us think that that's going to happen.
Right.
So the 18 is not really needed here. If they were at minus $3 million against the cap, well, now we could have a different conversation,
right?
And probably should have a different conversation where you need $18 million. and there's no guarantee he's going to deliver the goods. So you might need that $18 million. The last point here is what you gave up for the trade. It would look really bad. It would be a huge loss, and the first huge loss for Adam Peters if you were to cut this player now, which they're not considering, I don't think, because to your point, I really do believe that they think he's going to be awesome next year and for the next 2 years, and they think that that's why they acquired him, and whatever they got, after the injury this year was a bonus. But to that point, I do believe that Marshon Lattimore at an $18 million rate would be viewed differently if they hadn't have just given up the multiple draft picks, which is not how you should operate. Sunk cost fallacy style here. Yeah. Because I gave up picks doesn't mean I've now got to keep them on my roster. I don't think that should be a consideration at this point. The only consideration should be, now that I've seen him in my building, in my defense, what do I think he's going to be? What kind of guy is he in my locker room? And how good a player is he going to be next year?
And so some people would get really, really irritated if let's just say this comes true and they do cut him and save the money. I wouldn't. The attempt was very reasonable to me. You know what I mean? Like, I don't have a problem with you going, hey, we're better than we thought we'd be. Let's change course a little bit. We didn't give up a 1 or a 2. We need some help right now. We got a guy for a couple of years that we think could really upgrade this position after we cut the previous idiot's first-round pick who played this position. We're awful at corner. We're trying to go do something special here. We can fix this right now. If a defensive end was available with a similar potential impact for the same cost, I probably would have done that. Same with a couple other spots. So I don't begrudge the attempt at all. When you're trying to build on the fly, a 4-time or maybe it's 5-time Pro Bowler is not usually available for you, with the team that's in salary cap hell like the Saints are. So I have no issue with the attempt. To me, like I'm with you in the sense that that's very like bad management. And that's like a very Bruce Allen thing to do to me. And I'm not calling Adam Peters that, but saying like, we gave this up for him. We got to see it through. No, you don't. You got to build a really good team. And they know better than I do. They need to be able to say with confidence, the reason he did not play well was health and hamstring stuff. If that's the case, fine. I'm willing to give that an audience. To me, I am nervous about that guy.
Should they be thinking about $18 million as being as valuable as what Lattimore could give him next year? Should this even be a consideration where it seems like it's not? It seems like they made the decision when they made the trade that they're bringing him in for 3 years, whereas they have a get out of jail free card and they can get $18 million without a single penalty for 1 cent this offseason. Is this something they should be thinking about with Lattimore? Yes or no? 800-636-1067 if you want to join us on the MGM National Harbor listener lines.